नौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय मूर्तये चैतन्यं सर्वगं सर्वं सर्वभूतगुहाशयम् यत्सर्वविषयातीतं तस्मै सर्वविदे नमः। न येषाम् एक एवात्मा निर्दुःखो विक्रियः सदा तेषां छात् शब्दवाच्यत्वं ज्ञेयत्वं चात्मनः सदा। यदाहङ्कर्तुरात्मत्वं तदा शब्दार्थमुख्यता नाशनायादिमत्वात्तु श्रुतौ तस्यात्मतेष्यते। हन्त तर्हि न मुख्यार्थः नापि गौणः कथञ्चन जानातीत्यादिशब्दस्य गतिर्वाच्या तथापितु। येषाम् एकः एव आत्मा निर्दुःखः अविक्रियः सदा। येषाम् for the Vedantins, Siddhantins, Eka eva Atma, Atma is one, non-dual, all there is Atma. What it means, all there is Atma. Even the Buddhi, Chidavasa, all of these are never apart from Atma. What is meant by what is this Atma is that nothing is apart from Atma. Nothing exists apart from Atma. Or what is nothing but manifestation of Atma. Nothing has independent existence, nothing shines independently. And then what is Atma? And then still we have to explain all this apparent duality. The discussion begins from the declaration by the Upanishad that Eka eva Atma nirdukha avikriya sada. Yesham. For us, Upanishad is Pramanam. Therefore, we begin with what the Upanishad declares. Eka eva Atma, Atma is one, non-dual, all there is Atma. Nirdukha, Dukkha or sorrow has no room in Atma at all. Avikriya hai. There is no vikriya, no change. Atma is changeless, devoid of sorrow or samsaritvam, is one without a second. And applied to Satyam, Jnanam, Anandam, all of this also is implied here. This is how Upanishads reveal Atma to be, the self to be. And based on that revelation of Upanishad, to analyze the validity of whatever notions we have about the Atma. This is how the deliberation of vichara is carried out. Vichara is not carried out by I feel this way, dukhi, how can Atma be sukhi? No. Atma is sukhi. How do you arrive at dukhitvam? Please explain. Yesham mate eka eva atma nirdukha. For the Upanishads are those for whom Upanishad is pramanam. We have no doubt because of Shraddha the Atma is one, non-devoid, devoid of dukkha, devoid of any limitation. Ekam is not limited by anything. Tesham syat shabdavachyatvam nyetvam cha atmana sada na, that na goes to second line. Tesham for them. Atmana shabdavachyatvam na syat. Atma suggests that ekaha nirdukha avikriya. Atma suggests that cannot be the meaning of any word because meaning of any word is always dukhi, aneka and vikriya, vikari. Whatever be the meaning of a word, which means some object in the universe, out or in here, a word can reveal only something that is limited, which has beginning and end, therefore vikara, and therefore limitedness, therefore dukkha, and therefore confined to some boundaries, therefore aneka. Therefore, any word can only reveal one of the things, one of the many, not the one. A word can reveal something that is limited and therefore dukkhi. A word can reveal something is anatma. A word can reveal something that is vikriya or vikarvan, changing. Therefore, atma cannot be the direct meaning of a word, vachyartha, which Vedanta has to accept. Even when atma, which we want to know, is communicated to us by words, by the Upanishads, and still atma cannot be the vachyartha, the direct or familiar meaning of the word, put it this way. And still the words have to convey, have to make us know atma also. Then we have to set aside vachya. There has to be some other meaning other than vachyartha. So vachyarthatvam is now explored and said is not applicable for atma. So different propositions are there. Ahankartuhu atmatvam. If ahankara is atma, then it will become the vachyartha of what aham. Tada shabdartha mukhyata. Then atma would be the primary meaning of what aham. Aham means ahankara. Na asanayadimatvat, but that ahankara is endowed with, possessed of asnaya, pipasa, shokam, moham, jara, mrityu. And again, Upanishads reveal Atma to be devoid, free of asnaya, pipasa, jara, mrityu, shokam, moham. Therefore, tasya atmata na ishyate. Therefore, Shruti, from what Shruti says, Ahankara does not satisfy the characteristics of Atma. Dashanaya pipasa, shoka usavasnaya pipase, shokam hum jaram mrityumattedi. Hanta tarhina mukhyartho. That means then the Purva Pakshi says, it's a pity then that no word, Atma, cannot be the meaning of any word. Now the point is, napi gaunah kasanchana. A word can have a primary meaning, and we should always take into account the primary meaning of a word to begin with. The gauna means the secondary meaning, figurative meaning, implied meaning should be considered only when primary meaning is not applicable. A word you cannot use only in the gauna sense. Because when you utter a word, the listener will always take it as a primary meaning. That's how the mind works, and that's how the convention of interaction or communication is. And only when in the context that primary meaning is not applicable, then he will go for a gauna or secondary meaning. So the scope of secondary meaning comes only when primary meaning is not applicable. So secondary meaning, figurative meaning, implied meaning, gaunartha can be there only when the primary meaning, mukhyartha, is not applicable. But mukhyartha must be there, understand? The question of gauna artha or secondary meaning comes when primary meaning is not applicable. No, the primary is not there. You follow? The question of secondary can come only when primary is there. Then only there is secondary. A word can have gauna artha or figurative meaning, secondary meaning, only when it has a primary meaning to begin with. And that primary meaning is not applicable in a given context. Therefore, the listener then explores whether a secondary meaning which is related. You can't be, you use Ganga and then say, I meant Himalaya. That cannot be. There is always a related meaning. Shakya sambandha. You say Devadatta, but I meant Ganga. It cannot be. Even if you want to apply a secondary, it must be connected with Devadatta. But Devadatta should give something, and then when Devadatta primary does not work, then his mind should be able to discover the secondary. Otherwise, what's the use of communication? No, I meant this, but then communication doesn't take place. If you want that the other person should understand what you are saying, if you want that he should not understand, it's a different matter. But Shruti wants you to understand what it is saying here. That is a point here. Therefore, a secondary meaning is taken into consideration when a primary meaning is not applicable, provided primary meaning is there to begin with. Hantatarhina mukhyartha. If no shabdavachya means shabdavachyatvam is not there, if Atma is not the primary meaning of any word, then Purva Pakshi says, if primary meaning is not there, how can there be secondary meaning? That means that now no word is applicable as a primary, no gauna, kathanchana. If Atma, word let us say, the primary meaning of Atma is not applicable to Atma, then where is the question secondary meaning when primary is not applicable? Atma doesn't have word Atma. Atma is not achyartha of word Atma also. So here is the point that how can there be gauna meaning also? Therefore, But still, Upanishad says, Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. We says, Devdatta Janati, Gacchati, Karoti. If Janati, Gacchati, Karoti cannot be applicable to Devdatta in primary sense, then secondary sense also cannot be there. Janati ityadi shabdasya gatirvachya tathapitu. In the word Janati, Devdatta Janati. And who is Devdatta? Atma. Janati cannot apply to him. Devdatta is Buddhi, then also it cannot apply. So that verse 54, na buddhe avabodhosti na atmano vidyate kriya. We have to remember that. Buddhe avabodha nasti, buddhi being an insentient entity, therefore it cannot have knowledge. Atma being changeless cannot have kriya. So gacchati has these two aspects. The ting pratyaya also is there, and then the gam dhatu also is there. Ata nanyatarasyapi janati iti yujyate. So you cannot say buddhi knows because buddhi is insentient, cannot know. You cannot say atma knows because knower has to be changing, atma is changeless, therefore knows cannot apply to atma also. We always use these words. He knows, he goes. Where does it apply? Janati ityadi shabdasya gatirvachya tatha. Then, if you Vedantin says that no verb is applicable to Atma or Buddhi, it doesn't convey any entity. Then when we use the word Janati, then Janati applies to whom? Gatihi vachya tathapitu. Then Gati means what is the meaning? What is the purpose of using that word Janati? Where does it land? So this is the verse number 59. Eva uktaritya janatyade atmanyatra cha mukhyata na sambhavati. Janate. Sixth case of what? Janati. So janati is used as a word here. If janati, that word, not janati means knows, the word janati. Ityadehe atmani na mukhyata. That word janati, knows, does not apply in a primary sense to atma. Anyatra cha does not primarily apply to buddhi. That's the other one. Mukhyata na sambhavati, na sambhavet. So Vedantin doesn't want mukhyata to apply, because then if you say mukhya, then that will become real. So mukhya meaning is not desired by Vedantin. If Atma becomes the meaning of Atma, then it will be limited. So mukhyata na sambhavati, we want not mukhyata and still the ability of the word to communicate. This is the whole idea here. Tarhi vrityantarenapi atmani pravrutti anupanna. If mukhya or primary meaning is not applicable, then vrityantara, another vritti, this is gauna vritti. Then the gauna vritti can be there, secondary can be there, provided primary is there. If gacchati doesn't have primary meaning, then there cannot be secondary meaning also. You cannot say that the word Atma by secondary meaning means Atma, because Atma should have primary meaning to begin with. There should be an entity called Atma. No, there is no entity. Chaitanya cannot be called Atma, Buddhi also cannot be called Atma. The direct meaning of word Atma. Atma means I. The may primary meaning I is that which excludes you. So it's not all inclusive word. Where Atma means the self, that is all inclusive. Therefore, the word Atma also cannot primarily apply to what we want to convey by the word Atma. It is no primary meaning, there is no secondary meaning also. Nahi kapi amukhyam kvachit upachari iti sambhavati. Amukhyam. Mukhya meaning is not there, the gauna also cannot be. Upachariyate, upachariyate means the secondary meaning, figurative meaning. Aupacharika. The Aupacharika meaning means a figurative meaning, secondary meaning. Aupacharika cannot be if Mukhya is not there. Hantatarhi na Mukhyartho napi gauna kathanchana. Hey Vedantin, I sympathize with you. Because you are saying that a word doesn't have primary meaning, that means that you are also accepting that a word doesn't have secondary meaning also. Even though Vedanta didn't say that, but that's what it amounts to. Janadityadi sabdasya gatirvachya tathapitu. Tathapitu. So even if you do not accept primary meaning of janati, you have to say why, in what way, what will that word mean then? When Devdatta janati, when you say the janati has to convey something, if it does not convey janati knows in a primary sense, must convey in a secondary sense, but secondary sense cannot be if primary sense is not there. So where will the word janati, what will it mean? What will it communicate? So suppose somebody asks, Vedantin says, Mastu mukhya bhava, gaunapi, all right. Word janati doesn't have mukhya, primary meaning. And there was no secondary meaning. What's the big deal? What does it matter? Let it be. Suppose you say, a word doesn't have primary meaning, there was no secondary meaning. All right. Tathapi kimiti gatiravacha. But still, why do we have to explain? Say there is no primary meaning, there is no secondary meaning. All right. You have to explain then, what do you mean by word janati or gacchati? So, Vedanta just a way of, communicating. All right, so it doesn't have primary meaning, there is secondary meaning, so what? So you tell me, you are using word janati. In what sense are you using it? Verse 66 says, 60. Shabdanama yathartatve Vedasyapya pramanata Sachaneshta tato grahya Gatirasya prasiddhitah. Like a boxing match, one by one is punching, and this fellow is conceding ground, conceding Vedanta, So consider ground that there is no primary meaning, no secondary meaning. If this is so, sabdana ayathartatve. Yathartatvam, meaningfulness, ayathartvam, if words have no meaning. Vedasyapi apramanata, Veda is the form of Shabda, and then Shabdas do not have any yathartata, appropriate meaning. The Shabdas do not have meaning in which they are used. Then Veda is the form of Shabda, and so Veda also conveys ayathartata, what is not applicable. Then where is the pramana? Veda is not a pramana. Vedasya pramanata. Good, let it be. Sacha na ishta. Suppose you say, no, Veda is not pramana. But na ishta, hey Vedantin, you would not like it. Sacha na ishta. Apramanyata na ishta. You can't say Veda is not pramanam. So that's the sore point for Vedantin also. Because Veda is pramanam. Yes, no, Veda has to be tato grahya gati hatya prasiddhitah. In that case, you have to gati hasya grahya. Then the word gati means the meaning of the word has to be assigned. Prasiddhitaha, whatever be the common meaning, prasiddhitaha means what? In whatever sense it is normally used. Familiar meaning is what you have to accept. He wants Vedanta to accept some meaning and then say, so that contradicts what you are saying. So Tika says, न केवलम लौकिक शब्दानाम एव जानात्यादिना प्रमाणता. Once we accept that a laukika shabda means a familiar word used in our day-to-day vyavahara, like janati, we accept that janati does not have a meaning. Janati does not mean what it means. Yathartha. Yathartha means the meaning is in keeping with what the word is etymologically or used in a familiar sense. See, every word you may not be arrived at the etymological yogic meaning, but then the word are used in familiar sense. You don't know what it Sandasi, Rotli, whatever, Mutia. You may not be able to trace to the roots. So that is the prasiddhi. That's the commonly known meaning of the word. So but that is also not there, apramanata. You're not accepting the commonly accepted meaning of word such as janati, therefore janati apramanata doesn't have pramanyam, doesn't have the meaning, does not convey the meaning that in which it is used. Pramanata means a word should be able to create meaning in the mind of the listener. And that meaning that is created should be in keeping with the meaning in which the user has used the word. Yatharthata. If you say that word doesn't have a meaning, that means the listener doesn't get anything out of it. The Upanishads are also in the form of the same words. Not that words of Upanishads are different from the familiar words. That's another thing. Kintu vedasyapi api shabdayojana vedasyapi ityapi shabdayojana. Meaning words used in our day-to-day vyavahara interaction don't have meaning. Then same words are used by the Vedas also. Vedas don't use strange words. Vedas also use the familiar words because then only Veda can communicate to us. If Veda has words which we are not familiar with, then even though they may be wonderful words, they cannot convey the meaning. The Vedas also have to only use the familiar words in familiar meaning. Now you say that familiar meaning is not applicable, then how will Vedas also convey? If Vedas cannot convey, Vedas are not a pramanam anymore because Shabda does not create knowledge. Says Tika, Loka Siddhi Vyutpatti Apekshatvat, Loka Siddhi Vyutpatti Apekshatvat, Veda Bodhakatva Tasyedi Abhipraya. Veda Bodhakatvasya. That Veda has Bodhakatvam. Veda has Bodhakatva means the capacity to make you know. The capacity of Veda to make you know also is Loka Siddhi Vyutpatti Apekshatvat. Vedas also expect us to understand the meaning of the word in a common sense. What Vedas may have to communicate is something uncommon, but even the heaven has to be described only in the familiar words. So, Loka Siddhi Vyutpatti. Vyutpatti is the etymological meaning of a word, which is Loka Siddha, familiar to people. In that sense alone, Veda also uses the words, then only communication takes place. If there is no meaning, as you say, then Vedas also cannot communicate meaning, so Vedas are not pramanam. Alright, not pramanam. Sa na ishta, sa Vedasya pramanata na ishta. Purva Pakshi says, wait a minute, you are accepting something that you do not like? It's not, you would not accept or would not like the idea that Veda is not pramanam? Then chakara, sacha, naishta. चक अभेदस्यैव आत्मनि प्रमाणता इष्टा इति समुच्यते. Sacha, meaning that pramanya is required with reference to Atma, then only knowledge can take place. So not only it is not desirable Veda is a pramanam, but it is desirable the Veda is pramanam for communicating the knowledge of Atma. So apramanyata naishta, pramanyata ishta, both of them. अतः वेद प्रामाण्य अंगीकार लोभादेव. Therefore Vedantin also will have lobha, the greed, to accept the pramanyata, the authenticity of Veda. Otherwise there is no point, nothing, nobody can know anything. Therefore gatihi vacha. Therefore you must explain the words of Veda, which are also the words that are familiar. And what is the meaning of these words? If according to you words don't have primary meaning, they don't have secondary meaning, they cannot convey. Tarhi prasiddhayava gatihi kime vaktavyamiti. All right. Then the words have the familiar meaning. So what do you want from us? We say the words are used in day-to-day language in a familiar way. Vedas also use those words in a familiar way. No, but there is no familiar way. Says tato grahya gatirasya prasiddhi. Therefore, hey Vedantin, you also accept the meaning of the word in a familiar sense. So in whatever sense the words are used day to day, that meaning you have to accept also for words to communicate. And Vedas also use the same word, therefore Veda also can communicate. Only words have the familiar meaning. Familiar means if the words communicate in day-to-day language, then only Veda also can communicate. But there is no meaning in day-to-day language, then Veda cannot communicate. So you have to accept the words of meaning. Purva Pakshi says you accept that words of meaning. What meaning? The meaning in which they are commonly used. Prasiddhita. Tato grahya gatiyasya prasiddhitah chet iti sheshah. Therefore, if you have to accept now the familiar meaning of the words for any communication, then communication takes place in the day-to-day life. In that case, it can't take place with the Vedic communication also. So you have to accept some meaning. And therefore, prasiddha meaning, the familiar meaning has to be accepted. All right. Then we ask him, what do you mean, what kind of meaning? Tatra vaktavyam, still Purva Paksha is going on. Vedanta is Purva Paksha of the Purva Paksha. Tatra vaktavyam, all right, hey Purva Pakshi, you have to tell us, when you say that, you have to accept the familiar meaning. Familiar to whom? Prakrujan prasiddhya gati ashriyate painyadi abhiyukta prasiddhyava. The word is understood by the local people who have no education, or word is understood by the scholars of the Vyakaranam. Which meaning do you want? What do you mean prasiddha? What do you mean familiar? Mean familiar to whom? Familiar to the Gopalas, means they have never gone to school, or to the Panditas who know all the etymological meaning? So, you say that prasiddhita, prasiddha meaning must be accepted. We ask him, what do you mean? Tatradamunja dushayati. Prasiddha cannot be accepted. So next verse is Prasiddhir mudhalokasya yadigrahya niratmata lokayatika siddhantah sacha nishtah prasajyate. Sacha Nishta, yeah, that also is a part. Sacha Anishta Prasajyate also is there. Anishta goes with Siddhanta. Anishta goes with Niratmata. So depends on what the Visheshana is. Prasiddhi Mudalokasya Grahya. Muda means people who have no knowledge at all. And what do they think of Atma? So, Lokayatika Siddhanta, the one who has no background of any kind, who has never been exposed to any kind of Shastra, if he believes that Deha is Atma, just Lokayatika is a philosopher who establishes reasoning that Deha is Atma. But everybody accepts Deha as Atma. You don't need to be a philosopher to conclude that body is Atma. Except Charvakas are very smart and philosophically they conclude and they show you how Deha is Atma. But then, so if you say Mudalokasya, Mudaloka means those who are uneducated, non-thinking people, they always say body to be Atma. So what Atma and familiar meaning familiar to whom? To these people. Then Sacha Anishta Laukadika Siddhanta. Laukadika Siddhanta means Siddhanta, principle of the Charvaka. A Charvaka is the same Siddhanta that an ordinary person has. Every ordinary uneducated person by default believes that the body is Atma. And Laukadika is the one who provides arguments to establish that. That's all the difference is. But then what the Laukadika projects or promotes is what the people believe. Then, if Atma is a familiar meaning, then body is Atma. That's what you will accept. Prakruta Prasiddhi Abhyugame Dehatma Prasiddhe Abhyugamad. If you say that the words should be understood in the Prakruta or absolutely common sense, in the sense of the uneducated people. Prakruta means uneducated, asamskrita. Prakruta and Samskrita. Samskrita means culture, Prakruta uncultured. So culture comes when you are exposed to education, etc. We are not, then Prakruta. So without being told or educated, everybody takes body to be Atma. Dehatma Prasiddha Abhyugama, then you are already accepting that Deha is Atma. Niratma Vadadhyapatti Anishta, therefore Niratmata. There is no Atma, essentially. And that's what the Laukadika says, and that is what, if you accept that familiar meaning, and familiar to the uncultured, uneducated, then body is Atma, or there is no Atma. No, we want to accept word in the meaning in which scholars accept. Viditatmananda, all right. The next verse is Aviyukta Prasiddhische Purvadurvivekata Kadishunyam na vedoyam Pramana samvadatyuta. Aviyukta Prasiddhische. If you want prasiddhi or meaning, except abhiyukta means scholars, a vidwan. So if you want to, what do the vidwan, so what do scholars think of Atma? We go back to verse 54. What is it? Na buddhe avabodhosti. The scholars say that buddhi is insentient entity, therefore buddhi cannot know. Na atmano vidyate kriya, and Atma is changeless, therefore also there cannot be kriya or knowingness in Atma. Atha nantarastasyapi janat. Therefore, either buddhi or atma, you cannot use the word janati for either of them. This is what the scholars think. Abhiyukta prasiddhischet purvat durvivekat. Purvat means in the verse that you just read, durvivekata. There is no viveka. You can't arrive at any conclusion. Purvoditi Tika says, Buddhe Atmava Jnatva Durnirupam. As said in the verse 54, Atmana Buddhe Jnatrutvam Durnirupam. Buddhi cannot be Jnata because Buddhi is insentient. Atma cannot be Jnata because Atma is changeless. Therefore, Jnatrutvam, knowingness, Durnirupam, cannot be ascertained by either in case of buddhi or in case of atma. You cannot arrive at this meaning. Iti pragakta dosha prasanga. So, dosha we already stated, that same prasanga will come if you want to accept the meaning of what the scholars think about atma. So, if you use familiar meaning, niratmata, and the abhiyukta meaning, then durviveka, lack of any conclusion. All right. Yadi evam tarhi. So you keep on conceding ground, evam tarhi. Atmana gati shunyamiva jnatru. That means that janati has no gati. Janati does not apply to buddhi. Janati does not apply to atma. There is no entity where janati applies to. So janati has no gati. Janati has no meaning. That's called gati shunyam. Gati means the ultimate meaning or conclusion here. So the word janati does not apply to anything. Either you take the Prakruta view or the Samskrita view. Vedaha anuvadeshyatandam. Veda says jnanam satyam jnanam anantam brahma. And word jnanam does not apply to buddhi. Word jnanam does not apply to atma. Word jnanam doesn't apply to anything. Then Veda is talking about some entity which is not there. Jnanam, neither buddhi nor atma. So jnatrutvam Veda anuvadishyati. When it says atma is jnana swarupaha, then atma is knower. This is what Veda implies. But then if that janati cannot apply to atma or buddhi, then when Vedas use the word janati, that means it was meaningless. Gati shunyam, that word janati has no meaning. Doesn't have an appropriate locus. Janati does not land anywhere. The janati is turning around. Buddhi no. Atma no. Gati shunyam, that means that the word janati has no gati, has no ultimate meaning. So Veda is using the word which has no meaning. Therefore, gati shunyam, there is no gati, there is no ultimate landing point for the word jnana, no ashraya at all. Let it be so. Vedoyam pramanam. Understand, you are accepting Veda. So pramanam is hetu garvam. So Vedasya pramanatvat. So Vedoyam pramanam. Hetu garva means what? Pramana is the reason. That Veda is pramana, therefore it is not proper that the word used by Veda is meaningless. If some entity says the word, we can accept that it can be meaningless. But Veda cannot use meaningless word because it is pramana. So Veda says satyam jnana anantam brahma, brahma is jnana swarupam. That word has to have meaning. So this is how the Purva Pakshi says. Now how are you going to explain? What do the Vedas mean when it says Atma or when they say Janati, Jnanam? Where does the primary meaning apply? Then the secondary meaning will come. Vedantin wants to say that word Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, Brahma, the Lakshyartha will apply of these words, not Vachyartha. That's why Bhashyakara analyzes these words in the Taittiriya Upanishad Bhashyam and shows how the word Satya helps us understand the word Jnanam, how the word Jnanam helps us understand the word Satyam, and how word Anantam helps us understand both of them. And that is how that process of deliberation upon the meaning of words was to eliminate the Vachyartha and arrive at the Lakshyartha. That is how Bhashyakara's whole deliberation upon these words is to arrive at the Lakshyartha. And so, therefore, Veda is Pramanam, and then you have to explain. Where does the word Janati land? What is the ashraya or the locus of the word Janati? Cannot be Buddhi, cannot be Atma, then what is it? So all of this is said in order for the Siddhanti to establish justification of the concept of Chidabhasa. See, the author says that there is something, that's how the whole discussion started, Bimba and Pratibimba and then face and the reflection, mirror and this and that. And all of that was to establish some similar phenomenon is going on, that Buddhi is comparable to a mirror, Atma is comparable to face, and just as it is the nature of mirror to reflect, any face means any lighted object, not any object. A mirror reflects lighted object. If you stand before a mirror in darkness, there will be no reflection, by the way. So mirror does not reflect face, it reflects light. Understand that. Our face happens to be lighted, therefore you say mirror reflects face. Mirror reflects light, lighted object. In this case, face. Just by standing in front of mirror, face cannot be reflected. Mirror will reflect lighted face. But that is taken for granted, in this example. So, therefore, there is an entity called Chidabhasa, a reflected Atma. So, neither Atma in that word Jnana applies primarily, nor in mirror the Buddhi it applies primarily, but then the reflection of Atma in the Buddhi, that is where the word Jnana applies primarily. Then you go to secondary meaning. So primary meaning must apply someplace that you have to show, then only Lakshyartha is possible. So all this discussion is how the primary meaning cannot apply to Buddhi, nor can it apply to Atma. Then you have to accept our proposition that there is something called Chidabhasa. So this is the idea of Chidabhasa is introduced by the author as a part of Prakriya. And where did you get this? What is justification? So the author is establishing justification for the concept of Chidabhasa. Because unless you accept Chidabhasa, the whole communication is not going to be possible. So Vachyartha has to be there for Lakshyartha. And in Chidabhasa there is Vachyartha, Deva Atma becomes Lakshyartha. Therefore, in this manner of arguments, in a way as though the Purvapakshi dismissed Vedanta, in which Vedanta accepted that we are right, you are right. Things don't make sense. Vedanta is no problem, things don't make sense, that's what we mean. Things do not make, because they are all mithya. If they made sense, then it will be all real. So Vedanta has no shame in accepting that it doesn't make sense. Anirvachaniyatva. We don't pride ourselves in saying that we can explain. We can't explain, and nobody can explain. Those Nayayikas who pride that we can explain, you think that you can explain. Nobody can explain anything. That as far as the creation is concerned, whatever, nothing can be explained. That's called Mithyat Anirvachaniyam. And Vedanta and then the Vijnanists, scientists are confirming that thing. Because they are honest, therefore. They accept that we can't explain. So that is going to Vedanta also explain. That we also can't explain. And we don't need to. Those scientists will be frustrated because they can't explain. Vedanta is, I don't care to explain. That's the only difference. So they are struggling to explain and they will struggle. That is their job. They cannot give up, says, no, we can't explain. Then there is no science. There is no further exploration. So that will go on for infinite time. The investigation into nature of matter will go on forever. And they will learn more and more. At every step they are learning more and more and greater and get wonders and a lot of technology and a lot of developments. All that is very useful in Vyavahara. It can be useful in Paramartha only by understanding there is Mithya. Then it will lead you to Atma, there is Paramartha. That's the whole purpose of this universe, is to lead it to yourself. Keep on exploring for happiness, this, that, then you get frustrated, then you just let it go. If you don't let it go, then a scientist will not let it go, then he'll never come to himself. He's too proud to let it go. So if he's too proud to become metaphysicist, that won't happen. He would be in community of scientists. Anyway, there are many scientists who are, then they are philosophers also. Very enlightened people they are. But if you're humble, then you can become enlightened. So they are very great people, great, there is no question about it. But science means that you have to explain and you must strive as much as you can, as much as needed to explain. So that is good. Because that way many secrets are brought out and many things that are used, technology is brought out, and so humanity benefits a great deal. As far as Vyavahara is concerned, not as far as Paramartha is concerned. But anyway, Paramartha also we realize that this is not working out, this is not explaining, so let us look somewhere else, then that would also help. So that's the whole purpose of Mithyatva. Dve vidye veditavye iti asmayat brahma vido vadanti. That dve vidye veditavye. Both the vidyas have to be known. You have to know the world as mithya, and then you know the Atma is Satyam. So the next tika says, Chidatmani eva aupadiko janatyadi shabda prayoga sambhavati. So janatyadi shabda prayoga, the word janati, etc. Where sambhavati, where is it applicable? Aupad chidatmani eva. So that janati applies to chidatma. But how? Aupadikaha chidatma with upadi will satisfy the primary meaning of janati. Upadika Chidatma will be the meaning of the word Janati, and Chidatma will be the Lakshyartha of Janati. Upadika Chidatma is the Vachyartha of Janati, meaning Chidatma with costume, Chidatma with the Upadhi, with costume. And then you know that costume is Mithya, you let go, then Lakshyartha reveals the meaning of word. Janati, primary, in the Lakshyartha. Sambhavati, this is what Vedanta wants to conclude. Now all other gatis are discussed, that no other way this word can explain. Then ultimately gatis you would accept this Upadhi and this Chidabhasa. Other than accept in Chidabhasa, there is no gati, meaning that there is no other way of explaining. Therefore, Chidatmani aupadika janati shabda prayoga sambhavati. Or sopadike chidatmani, chidatma with upadhi alone. So upadiko janati shabda prayoga or upadika chidatmani. Chidatma with Upadi. This is where the Janati word will apply in a primary sense. So Shabda Aupadika Shabda Prayoga. Shabda Prayoga also is with reference to Upadi only, not with reference to the one that is in the Upadi. And that will lead you to the meaning of the Nirupadika. So Supadika can be explained or described by the word, and leading to Nirupadika by Lakshyartha. This is the Prakriya of Vedanta. The Abhipraya, keeping that in mind. If the Abhipraya means that is kept in mind, that is the final thing, You keep on playing now in a game of chess. Finally you will arrive at that. Before that you have to make moves. So Abhipretya, what is Abhipraya? That word Janati applies to Sopadika Atma. Siddhanti Drishtantamaha. But then you must, the listeners should be able to understand what you are saying. So therefore, first of all, you explain similar phenomena going on in our day-to-day life. The model that we have arrived at is based on our day-to-day experiences. So example, illustration must be something familiar to everybody. Then you come to illustrate. So first Drishtanta. So Drishtantamaha. Next verse is Adarsha Mukha Samanyam Mukhasyeshtam hi manavaihi Mukhasya pratibimbo hi Mukhakareణ drishyate. Adarsha Mukha Samanyam. Adarsha Mukham and Mukham. So, Grivastham Mukham. The face which is on the neck is one. And Adarshastham Mukham, the face which is in mirror. Two faces are there. Adarsha Mukha Samanyam means Adarshastham Mukha Samanyam. The Mukham which is there in Adarsha of the mirror is similar to the Mukham, the Grivastham Mukham is similar to face which is on the neck. Manavahi Ishtam, this is what the people accept. That what is apparent, what appears in the mirror is the same as this one, similar or same as this one. In fact, when we look at the face, we don't think there is a reflection. We are looking at our own face. When you look at the face in the mirror, I'm looking at the reflection, nobody thinks so. I'm looking at my face, I'm looking at myself. Is it not so? So how the reflection is taken to be real? That's the Drishtanta. Adarsha Mukha Samanyam, so says Tika, Adarsha Mukham means Adarsha Drisyamanam Mukham. The Mukham, the face that is visible in the mirror. Samanyam, Tena Samanyam, Samanatvam, in fact. That the face visible in the mirror is the same as my face. Ekatvam, that in our day-to-day life we do not see the difference between the reflection of our face because I'm looking at myself, I say. I don't say I'm looking at my reflection. What do I say? I'm looking at myself. So let's go ekatvam. Therefore, my face is real and face which is visible in mirror, I look at them as one and not look at that is different reflection. By default, we look upon that as our own face. Is it not so? That is Drishtanta. Mukhasya, or what? The face. Which mukham? Adarshad bahihi tishtataha. The face which happens to be outside the mirror, on the griva, on the neck, that's the face. And the face that is seen in the mirror, we look upon them as one only. I don't think that that's different from this face. Manava ishtam. So this by default. That manava by human being, with other people, I don't know what they know about reflection. Poor dogs and cats also may be looking there, but what is going on in their mind, we don't know. A bird also looks at, we don't know what's going on there. But we know what's going on in our mind. I'm looking at myself. So, manavahi ishtam hi prasiddham it aksharata. So, ishtam hi manavi, he means prasiddhi. So, this is well known that when manavas, human beings, look at the face in the mirror, and the actual face is outside the mirror, and there is a face in the mirror, but they do not see the difference between the two. Mukhasya pratibimbo hi mukhakarane drishyate. Mukhasya pratibimba, the reflection of the face, mukhakarana is seen as mukham. The reflection of the face is seen by human beings as face. Mukhakarana. When you look at the reflection, the pratyabhijna, the recognition is what? Hey, this is the reflection. No. What is the recognition? This is the face. So says Tika, Adarshe Mukhe Vyakti Antara Utpada Anupatti Sahakrutataya. There is Adarsha in the mirror, there is a different, that cannot be different. So Anupatti, the face in the mirror could not be unless it was my face. So that is how Anupatti. So by Arthabhatti, we arrive at this conclusion that this is my face, or I am that. Because not that we argue like this and arrive at conclusion, but then Anupatti Sahakrutataya. Then this could not be unless it was my face. I could not see it there unless it was my face. And therefore, there is a recognition, there is what is called pratyabhijna. I recognize that face. You look at the face, there is recognition of that face. What is the recognition? It's my face. Why? Because otherwise it would not appear there. So I may not go through this reasoning in my mind, but that is why I say it is my face. I don't say that it is a reflection of my face. Understand, this is important. Mukhaikyam manavishyate iti. So, iti pratyabhijnaya bimba pratibimba bhavan upadita bhed avabhasepi. Even though if I think about it, then bimba pratibimba bhavena upadita bhed avabhasepi. That the face that is seen in the mirror is upadika is due to upadi of the mirror. And face that is outside on my neck is a different face. And therefore, if I pay attention, then I will know that that is the face which is reflection. And this is the image. My face is bimba, we see in the mirror is pratibimba, but we do not generally see that distinction. Mukha aikyam manavaishyate ved avabhasep, even though there is in a way some awareness that is reflected face in the mirror and this is my face, is there. But that is the reason why if that face suppose is distorted, then I know that distortion doesn't belong to my face. If there are some blemishes on that face, I know they don't belong to me, that also I know. I still recognize that my face. So, manavi, mukh aikyam manavaishyate, the face that appears in the mirror, reflection, is my face. Eva iti uktam bhavati. So, this is by default. How what appears in the mirror is taken to be mine, my face. Not reflection of my face, my face. Uktameva ekatvam sphutayati mukhasya pratibimbo hi mukhakarana drishyate. Mukhasya pratibimba, the reflection of the face. Mukhakarana drishyate, the reflection is seen as face, mukhakarana, as the mukha. So when I look at the reflection in face, The impression that gets created in my mind is not that I am looking at the reflection. The impression that gets created in mind is I am looking at the face. You follow? Isn't it? So this is the stanta familiar to everybody. Meaning that thus in our day-to-day life also the viveka is not there, aviveka is there. This is the example of aviveka. How the distinction between the reflection and the image is not seen in our life also because of similarity. That face in mirror looks so real, and therefore I forget. If I pay attention I may, but otherwise I forget that it's a reflection. It's my face. So just as we find this, and so also that's what we find in life. Atma, I think is Atma. So reflection of Atma is seen in the buddhi. Now aupadikam. Reflection is aupadikam mukham. Meaning that all those discussed earlier. How reflection is in fact controlled by the upadi or mirror. So mukham, pratibha is mukhanukari or adharanukari. Upadi means adhara. So this adhara of that reflection is the mirror. And so reflection follows mirror. Does not follow my face. Reflection in a way follows, but then it is the characteristics of mirror that determine how the face will appear, and therefore it is different. So discussion began by saying that reflection is a different entity and face is a different entity, not different it is real, but different. Because reflection, the nature of reflection is determined by mirror. If mirror is there, reflection is there. Mirror is not there, reflection is not there. If mirror is distorted, reflection is distorted. Therefore, reflection is one entity, independent entity in a way. And my face doesn't in any way depend upon mirror. It's there whether mirror is there, not there. So it's independent. In that sense, the two-ness of was established. Not that they are in reality different. Not that the reflection enjoys separate reality. But in Vyavahara, reflection is one and face is another one. So that's how discussion started. That comes back here. Even though that is so, even though in reality reflection is one, different from this face because reflection follows the nature of the reflecting medium, namely mirror. It is there if the mirror is there, not that a mirror is not there. It is where the mirror is, not where the mirror is not. And if mirror has any distortion, the face also has them. Therefore, in that sense, face is described as a separate entity separate from the face, whereas face is not dependent upon mirror, not determined by the mirror. Even whether the mirror is there or not, face is there. Mirror is distorted or not, face is there. In that sense, face is one and the reflection is another one. And still when we look at the reflection, we don't see the difference. We say that this is my face, this is me. So even though the two are different, I do not see the difference. How the difference is, that viveka is not there in our day-to-day life, that's aviveka example. How the two are seen as one. Brilliant, this is, so the discussion started with the reflection and what's going on, but then what is in mind is this here, as to how there is aviveka in our life. So that is how I started with reflection and the face. That aviveka is in our day-to-day life, look at this. There are two entities. Reflection is one entity different from face because it is controlled by a mirror. And we know it also. And still we don't use that knowledge in our vyavahara because I look at the face, I take it to my face. There is reflection, different, that kind of thing. If I pay attention and think about it, I may arrive at it. But the way vyavahara is going on, I do not see the difference, distinction. So aviveka is involved in the vyavahara. Example, aviveka. Superimposition. Because adhyasa, where do you get the adhyasa business? You cannot present all these kind of terms when there is no example of that. No, adhyasa is there in everyday life. So by establishing that there is a phenomenon called adhyasa, then only the adhyasa can be applied to Atma, etc. Otherwise, what do you mean by adhyasa? We never heard of that. No, not only you experiencing it every day. Look at this is adhyasa. In Brahma Sutra, the example is of the Shuktika Rajatam, but this is much, it's just different example. Much of a brilliant example. That adhyasa is there. So now when you examine this experience, then you will know how mithya also is there, appearance also is there, the superimposition of reality upon mithya also is there, adhyasa also is there, day-to-day experience it is there. So we are not talking about something new. Otherwise you are using a word which we are not familiar with. So whether vivarta, whatever it is, it must be there in our life. Otherwise you can't use that expression. Although the word vivarta we may not use, but it's going in our day-to-day life. Similarly also, this adhyasa word may not be there. Where is it in Upanishad? But it's in our life. So what Upanishad says can be explained only when we bring into this understanding what is happening in our life. That is how these technical words can become meaningful, because we are already familiar with them if we think about our life. So example of adhyasa is being given here. Anyway, this is where I think our discussion will have to take a break. And we'll be meeting after quite some time, so we'll have to go back to this again. But anyway, so all we are saying is how the discussion is slowly led to this. That as though Vedantin found himself in a corner. No gati at all, there is no explanation possible. Says yes, no explanation is possible because there is no explanation, because there is mithya. What's the example of mithya? This is example. Aviveka, mithya, etc. So here the discussion just centers upon our life, day-to-day experiences are brought into our attention to show how these principles are involved and how therefore those principles can be applied to communicate. Therefore Upanishad uses those things in communication. If you are not familiar with the phenomenon of adhyasa and Upanishad uses that, would not make any sense. But no, we are familiar with adhyasa. Therefore Upanishad can take that model to communicate. So this is what the author is trying to say here. Okay. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutrabhashya Krutau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.